before the world called me a leader. Before they saw the uniform, the medals, the speeches. I was just a boy. A boy born under the burning sun of the Sahel. My childhood wasn't soft. It wasn't painted with comfort or ease. I grew up with cracked heels, calloused hands, and a mother who carried the weight of the world without complaining. Every morning I walked for water. Every night, I read by a flickering candle until the flame gave up before I did. We had little, but we held on to what mattered: discipline, dignity, and fire in our hearts. In the corner of our small house, we had one broken radio. It barely worked. The antenna was a bent piece of metal my uncle had twisted into shape. But somehow that radio picked up voices from across borders: Ghana, Ivory Coast, even Europe, when the air was quiet enough. One night, after a long day of carrying buckets and chasing books, I lay down on my mat. I turned the knob on that radio like I always did, hoping to catch something, anything. That night I heard a voice that stopped me cold. A woman's voice, not African, not local, but strong, smooth, and haunting. She sang, "Where the boys are, someone waits for me." Her name was Connie Francis. I didn't know her story, but I knew the feeling in that song. I wasn't thinking about love. I was thinking about all the boys like me. Boys in the mines. Boys on the streets. Boys in silence, forgotten by the world but not by fate. That song reminded me we were out there, scattered, lost maybe, but not broken. I didn't cry. I didn't sigh. But something inside me shifted. That night I realized something. We are not waiting to be saved. We are waiting to rise. Connie's voice reached me not to comfort me, but to wake me up. It told me that even in the most unexpected places, even through a battered radio in a poor house in Burkina Faso, we can hear the call to stand. I was a boy then. But I knew, if I ever had the power to change something, I would. Because I didn't want to keep asking, "Where are the boys?" I wanted to answer, "We're here. And we're ready." It wasn't just a love song anymore. It was a promise. That somewhere, even if far away, there was a place for the forgotten. And maybe, just maybe, one day he'd lead them there. I didn't understand every word of the lyrics at first. English was still foreign to me then. But you don't need to understand a language to feel its weight. I felt the pull in her voice. Not just sadness, recognition. She was singing about something I knew well even as a boy. That ache of not belonging. That silence when the world forgets your name. That question that burns in your chest. Does anyone see us? At the time, war hadn't yet knocked at our door, but we could hear its footsteps. Slow. Calculated. Coming closer. The air began to change. Men in suits came to our villages, promising aid but delivering chains. Foreign soldiers appeared, not to protect us but to protect what they wanted from our soil. The elders whispered. The prices rose. And the boys, they started disappearing. Some joined rebel groups. Some crossed deserts chasing jobs that didn't exist. Some simply vanished, swallowed by the hunger, the silence, or the gun. I was just a boy. But I was watching. And that song, "Where the Boys Are," stayed with me like a thread of sanity. It didn't make me weak. It didn't make me soft. It reminded me that I wasn't born to become a machine for someone else's war. It reminded me that there was still something worth protecting inside me. The dream. The voice. The reason to stand. Every time the world grew louder, when bullets echoed in the distance, when leaders betrayed their people for coins, when I saw boys my age holding rifles instead of books, I would think of that voice. That clear, distant voice saying, "Someone waits for me." It wasn't just a song anymore. It became a promise. That we could still fight without losing our soul. That we could still resist without becoming what we hate. The world tried to bury the boy I was. But I held on to him years past. I walked through fire. I watched brothers fall. I stood before crowds that had lost faith in flags. I spoke in rooms where wolves wore neckties and smiled. And somehow, through it all, I rose. Not for myself, but for the boy I used to be and for the thousands just like him. Boys who had never been given the chance to dream. Boys who never heard their names spoken with pride. And then one day the news came. Connie Francis has died. I paused. The War Council was waiting, papers on the table, security reports piling up, but I said nothing. I just stood there for a moment, remembering. I walked to my private room, closed the door behind me, and sat beside a small wooden table covered in dust and old maps. And for the first time in years I picked up a pen, not to sign a directive, not to draft a strategy, but to write a letter. A letter to the family of the woman whose voice once reached a village no map cared to mark. A woman who reminded me I was still human, even when the world tried to turn me into something less. I wrote, "To the family of Connie Francis, I may sit now as the president of a wounded but rising nation, but tonight I am just a boy again. A boy lying beside a broken radio in a dark room, listening to your mother's voice for the first time. She didn't know me. She didn't know my village. But somehow her voice found me. She sang to a child the world had tried to forget. And in her voice, I found a reason to remember who I truly was, even as bullets flew, even as empires returned wearing suits. Her song, Where the Boys Are, was more than a melody. Was a lifeline. It was a quiet message in a loud, violent world, that someone, somewhere believes we matter. Today across Africa, boys are still searching, not just for food or freedom, but for belonging. And your mother's voice still guides them. May her soul rest where peace sings and where the boys, the forgotten, the brave, the rising, finally come home. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, President of the Transition Burkina Faso. People think revolution is built only with guns and bold speeches. But I've learned something else. Sometimes, it starts with something much quieter. A sound. A memory. A voice you didn't expect to hear, in a place the world forgot. For me it was that song. A voice across the ocean. Soft, steady, but strong enough to survive the noise of war, the silence of poverty, and the weight of betrayal. Where the boys are. I used to wonder what it meant. Now I know. We, the boys who were buried under silence, used as pawns, turned into shadows, we were never truly lost. We were just waiting. Waiting for the day we could rise, lead, and speak our truth. Connie Francis may be gone. But the boy who heard her voice, he's still here. Not hiding. Not wondering anymore. He's standing. Leading. Fighting, not just with force but with purpose. And maybe now, after everything, I finally know where the boys are. We're here. We've come home. And we are not silent anymore. For our ancestors. For our children. For the soul of Africa. Subscribe to African Revolutionary Lens.